In this video, we will be looking at kubeconfig. So, what is a kubeconfig? A kubeconfig file tells kubectl which cluster to talk to, who you are, and what default settings to use. So, in a CK exam, when we are answering questions, there will be questions like go to this cluster and fix something over there, or deploy uh, an Nginx pod in cluster 3. Something like these questions will arise. So in this context, we should know what cluster we are connected to and what cluster we are currently using and what are the clusters available in our kubeconfig. So the default location for a config file is over here under .kube and config. And usually the kubeconfig structure will be of these three pillars. First thing you can see here, clusters. So in the clusters section, we can see the server endpoint and the required certificates. And the next one is users, where you will see the username details. And the next one is contexts. This is where you will map the user with the cluster. So these are the three important pillars of a kubeconfig. Now, how do we know in what context we are? So that is a command kubectl config current context. So here you can just run this command and you can see we are in this cluster. And where do we get this? This is also from the kubectl quick reference files, and there are commands over here where you can get this from the official documentation and run. So we already had a video on this. This is the second video in the series that we talked about kubectl quick reference. And in the third video, we are going to explore more about kubeconfig file. Now, we want to see how many clusters we are having. So we can run k-config view. So here you can see there are two clusters and two contexts and two users. So if there is a question like something like user someone, uh, how do we know what user is mapped to what cluster? So it's here you can see under user section kind cka cluster, and there is a cluster kind cka cluster, the same cluster name, but in the context you can see this user is mapped to this cluster, right? So this is how we can check and debug any uh, issues related to kubeconfig, and we can see what are the servers connected and what are the ports they are connected on. Okay, so this is how it works. And if we might also need to debug something, and we might also um, need to maybe switch to use a specific namespace. For example, let's let's try and debug. Let's understand the current context. Okay, maybe let's clear this and let's go and copy this command current context. Let's paste it here. So we are in this one. There is another cluster also, but we are on the first cluster. And if we run kget pods, it's getting from the cube system namespace because it's mapped to the primary cube system. But I want to map to the default namespace. So here I can I can just use this command kubectl config set context current. So the current context to default. And if I run kget pods, it should show my default namespace pod. So that's how we can use the kube config, and that's how we can set the context, current context, or understanding the contexts and available clusters and all. That's all for the video. Thank you. See you in the next.